Hey there, Nico here from Zambeze, Flora. Today it's about mid-September. We're going around just to have a look around again what is blooming on the plot at the moment. It's a little sparse now, kind of getting to the middle of the low period for most things flowering, but there are things coming up, so let's go have a look. This is a recent collection that we made 2 years ago, and the nice little starry white flowers. This is Drimia sanguinea in the Hyacinthaceae family, although that's now been sunk under Asparagaceae. With the nice little white tepals on this kind of, that's about 30 or 40 centimeter long raceme. So this is another Drimia. This is Drimia macrocarpa, which grows a little taller, produces larger flowers and kind of different shaped flowers than the previous Drimia sanguinea. Also an Asparagaceae, formerly Hyacinthaceae. And this one produces longer brown to tannish tepals, which would normally reflex back. Now, these flowers are pendulous, kind of hanging down. And these tepals would reflex fully, kind of shooting back almost like in a shooting star kind of pattern. And again, this will then be followed by the leaves when the rains come on. But these, like that previous Drimia, will literally flower and set seed, and that seed will start to shed just as the rains start to get going. So can be very prolific. This one does not stand out very well against the background, but is a good indicator of the time of year and the fact that the seasons are changing and the growing season is starting up again. Here we have another member of the former Hyacinthaceae, now Asparagaceae family. This is Elbucca absinica. Absinica because it was first collected up in Ethiopia, the old name for Ethiopia. See if we can get it focused, that's a little better. And these produce racemes with these yellowy green, kind of outwardly to sometimes nodding flowers. This is a very prolific species, and just this one in behind here has started to set seed, although the top of the raceme is still in flower. And these seeds are many, and they all seem to germinate. This can become quite a weed in a grasslandy area quite quickly. And so I don't mind it growing up in this corner of the farm where the bananas are, and the grass grows long. But another kind of useful indicator of the changing of the seasons, although this can continue to flower for quite a while. If these stalks are cut or destroyed in any way, the bulbs will put up more flowers to make obviously more and more seed. Here we've got Vigna fructascens, subspecies fructascens, variety fructascens in the Fabaceae family, subfamily Papillonidae. Quite a long name for this plant. It has these lovely purple to lavender flowers, which can come out very, very early, especially after grassland or woodland is burnt. And you can see actually on the stem here, there's a lot more buds to still come up. But these actually have quite a long flowering period. The flowers themselves might last just a few days, but there's usually many more to replace them. And then once the rains actually arrive from these stems, the leaves will start to emerge. Now I've had some difficulty growing these from seed, sorry. But I hope to be able to succeed at least and be able to spread this further around the farm, because it's such a lovely, early, bright colored plant. So there's a number of the epiphytic orchids that are out and flowering right now. And here we've got the Leopard orchid and Celia africana, with its actually fairly large flowers on this specimen here. Usually producing flowers in the color range of yellows with the maroon spots on them, although they can be anywhere from kind of a lime green through to bright, bright yellow, and either with very few maroon spots to sometimes almost completely covered with maroon spots. And these will usually flower from August through to December, even into January. And is a very common component in the drier woodlands here in Zambia, although they do occur into higher rainfall areas, just not as frequently there. So a nice, well-known epiphytic orchid here in Zambia and across Africa, for that matter. Here's another epiphyte. This is Polystachia Golongensis. This is a small-flowered species, with these little spikes of yellow flowers that are maybe about 5 millimeters across. Produced from pseudobulbs with these kind of thick, fleshy leaves. Now this species only really occurs up in northwestern Zambia, and that's where I collected this plant from a fallen branch. And it flowers for me regularly each year, which is quite lovely. So I've tried hand pollinating it with another specimen and hoping to get some seed off of this one and see if we can't get this one growing in cultivation. Here we have actually the very showy flowers of Polystachia dendrobaflora. So related to Polystachia golongensis that I just showed with the smaller yellow flowers. But these ones per flower are much larger, a little over a centimeter across actually, and produced on these sometimes very long flower stalks from these, again, little pseudobulbs, which usually actually grow on species of Xerophyta here in Zambia, sometimes growing terrestrially or lithophytically, but then at this time of year produce these white to very lightly pink flowers. Here we have the epiphytic orchid Microcelia hershbergie. It is a leafless orchid. It actually does produce leaves, but they're tiny and more scale-like than anything else, and the role of photosynthesis is then actually taken on by the roots, which can grow in these kinds of tangled masses and give it really a kind of a spidery appearance, which in and of itself is actually quite ornamental. But then they will produce these short sprays. At least this species will produce these short sprays of these brilliantly kind of white flowers with kind of a darker center. And this will give a display over the next 2 or 3 weeks or so. This is just starting to come into to flower. This is Griforcus lurida. And you can see actually with its short stubby pseudobulbs and these aerial roots that are upright to collect leaf litter and so forth. Very reminiscent of the leopard orchid, which also produces similar roots. However, this thing produces much smaller flowers. And the flowering period is not too long. It's actually quite short, with this inflorescence being slightly branched. You know, sometimes it's more branched in other specimens. But these kind of less than a centimeter wide yellow and maroon flowers that are produced, at least for us here in the Lie, in this kind of August-September period. So not the most large flowered and showy plant, but definitely a nice one to be growing as well. It's not just the epiphytic orchids that are starting to flower at this time of year. Here there are actually quite a few species of early flowering Ulofia species in Zambia. And this is quite a fantastic specimen of Ulofia katangensis that I recently collected, and I'm going to make some DNA and spirit collections for a colleague of mine who's doing the phylogenetic analysis of Ulofia, as well as a number of other orchid genera. But yeah, no, it's such a lovely kind of color to these flowers, and not easy to spot actually against the dry background in most of the woodlands at this time of year. But it is flowering at the moment. You can see there is no evidence of leaves being produced at this point in time. The leaves might not be produced for another month and a half to 2 months, depending on when the rains would come. But despite that, these flowers are up and proudly showing. So here's another Ulofia that's just coming up at the moment. This is Ulofia penduliflora with these really small flowers, you know, maybe about an inch across, 2.5 centimeters across, when you look at the kind of spreading sepals on those, with these brownish purple sepals, yellow petals, and then a yellow lip with these yellow papillae on them. Very, very diminutive, easy to miss in the woodlands as you're walking through. I've actually tried crossing this bottom flower here with the Ulofia katangensis. So I'm curious to see if that'll give viable seed and maybe something of interest if I can get them to germinate. But hoping to grow a few more of these and spread them around the farm if I can. And yeah, well, that's it for this September tour. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up, share it, and subscribe. Cheers.